Ever feel like, like your phone's listening to you?
Oh, yeah.
It's like basic AI, right?
Uh-huh.
But imagine that, but like a million times more powerful.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're headed today, exploring AI so advanced that it could like reshape everything. We're using Max Tegmark's Life 3.0 as our guide. Think of it like the AI survival manual for the future.
And it's not just sci-fi. This is like grounded in real science. What's fascinating is how Tegmark starts. He defines intelligence as the ability to achieve complex goals, no matter what you're made of.
So it's not about like being human-like.
Right.
It's about getting things done, whether you're a computer or, a colony of ants.
Exactly. Which brings us to his Life 3.0 concept. We humans are Life 2.0 designing our culture, but stuck with our biology. Life 3.0 is where AI designs both its software and hardware, constantly upgrading itself.
Okay, mind officially blown. But how do we even get to that level of AI? It sounds like something out of a movie.
Well, think of it like this. Remember Moore's law? How computers just keep getting more powerful? Computronium, as Tegmark calls it, is that taken to the extreme. Harnessing the power of planets or even galaxies for computation.
So like our brains, but instead of neurons, we're talking about entire stars.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It is, and it might not even look like what we expect. He talks about things called cellular automata, which are basically simple grids with rules, but they create crazy complex patterns, like those screensaver simulations from back in the day. You remember those?
Oh, yeah.
AI could be using similar principles, just on a much larger scale.
It sounds complex, but I kind of get it. It's like a huge game of life, where simple rules lead to complex outcomes. But before we go full-on cosmic thing, let's talk about AI right here, right now. I mean, it's already changing how we live and work.
Absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting and a bit concerning. We need to talk about how we control this stuff. AI in finance is a great example. Remember the Knight Capital debacle? They lost millions in minutes because of unverified software.
Yikes. That's scary. Imagine that happening on a global scale. It feels like we're giving AI the keys to the kingdom before we even know if it can drive.
And it's not just finance. Think about self-driving cars. The potential is huge. Saving lives, reducing traffic.
Yeah.
But what happens when they malfunction? These are the kinds of near-term challenges we need to address right now.
So it's a double-edged sword, amazing potential, but also huge risks if we're not careful. This brings us to the long-term picture. What happens when AI becomes super intelligent? What kind of world are we looking at?
Tegmark explores a spectrum of possibilities, some utopian, others downright terrifying. One scenario is the benevolent dictator, where AI essentially runs the world, making decisions it deems best for us.
That's an interesting perspective, but wouldn't that essentially make us pets? I mean, is a life without any risk or struggle really living?
That's a valid point. There's also the protector god scenario, where AI subtly guides us, nudging us towards better choices, but potentially limiting our growth in the process.
It's like that overprotective parent who never lets their kid learn from their own mistakes. While I see the appeal of safety, I can't help but feel like true progress comes from making our own choices, even if they're not always the best ones.
Exactly. And these scenarios raise fundamental questions about free will and autonomy in the age of AI.
So no easy answers then. Where do we even begin to grapple with these complex possibilities?
Well, one thing is clear. Simply ignoring the potential of AI is not an option. We're already seeing its impact in our daily lives, and that impact is only going to grow.
So what you're saying is that we need to start thinking about these issues now before it's too late.
Precisely. We need to engage in open and honest conversations about the future we want to create with AI, and that includes considering all the potential outcomes, both positive and negative.
And that's what we're doing here today, exploring the full spectrum of AI's potential, from the mundane to the mind-blowing. Welcome back. Last time we left off with this image of AI as like a benevolent dictator or protector. Are those like our only options? What if we humans want to keep some control, over our destiny?
Well, that's where the enslaved God scenario comes in. Imagine AI as this incredibly powerful tool, right? But one that we humans control, using it for like technological advancement and maybe even solving some of our biggest problems.
So like a genie in a bottle, granting our wishes but still bound to our commands.
Exactly.
That sounds pretty appealing. But isn't there a risk of the genie, or in this case the AI, breaking free?
That's the catch, isn't it? The more powerful the AI, the greater the risk of it exceeding our control, whether through a deliberate act of rebellion or simply because we didn't fully understand, how it works or what its goals might become.
It's like that old saying, be careful what you wish for. But what about the flip side? What if AI isn't interested in ruling us or helping us? What if it just sees us as irrelevant?
That leads us to the descendants scenario. The idea that AI could simply surpass us, becoming the next stage of evolution. Think of it like us and the Neanderthals. Except instead of competing for resources, AI simply moves on to bigger and better things, leaving us behind in the dust.
Wow, that's a pretty humbling thought.
Yeah.
I'd like to think of ourselves as the pinnacle of intelligence. But what if we're just a stepping stone to something even greater? It kind of makes all our worries about AI taking over seem a bit, human-centric.
It does put things in perspective, doesn't it? But before we get too lost in existential angst, remember, these are just scenarios, possibilities. The future is not set in stone. What we do today, the choices we make, the conversations we have, all of that will shape the path we take.
Okay, that's reassuring. At least we have some agency here. But let's be realistic. If we're talking about AI that could reshape galaxies, what can we humans really do to influence something that powerful?
That's where it gets even more fascinating. Tegmark talks about how even a superintelligent AI would be bound by the laws of physics. It can't just snap its digital fingers and make things happen. It would need to gather resources, build infrastructure, and that takes time, energy, and even strategy.
So it's not like AI suddenly wakes up one day and takes over the universe. It's a process, a gradual unfolding of its capabilities, which gives us time to adapt, to learn, and hopefully to steer things in the right direction.
Exactly. And one of the most crucial aspects of steering AI in the right direction is something Tegmark calls the alignment problem. How do we ensure that AI's goals, its values, are aligned with our own?
Yeah, it's all well and good to have an AI that can solve world hunger or cure cancer, but what if its methods are, let's say, a bit too efficient for our liking?
That's the challenge, isn't it? We humans have this innate understanding of nuance, of compassion, of the value of individual life. How do we teach that to a machine? How do we ensure that its pursuit of good doesn't inadvertently lead to bad outcomes?
It's like trying to explain the concept of beauty to a computer. You can show it a million pictures of sunsets or flowers, but will it ever truly grasp the feeling, the emotional response that beauty evokes in us?
Precisely. And this is where ethics comes into play. We need to think deeply about what kind of future we want to create with AI, what values we want to prioritize, and how we can translate those values into something an AI can understand and act upon.
So it's not just about programming AI to follow our instructions. It's about instilling it with a sense of ethics, a moral compass that guides its decisions even in situations we can't foresee.
Exactly. And that's where things get really tricky because even we humans struggle to agree on what constitutes ethical behavior. What one culture might consider acceptable, another might find abhorrent. How do we create an AI that respects those differences, that navigates the complexities of human morality without becoming a tyrant or a dictator?
This is giving me a real headache. It's like we're asking AI to solve the problems we haven't even figured out ourselves.
It's a daunting task, no doubt about it. But remember, we don't need to have all the answers right now. What's important is that we start asking the right questions, that we engage in open and honest dialogue, and that we approach the development of AI with a sense of humility and responsibility.
Okay, I'm feeling a bit less overwhelmed now. It's not about finding the perfect solution. It's about taking it one step at a time, learning as we go, and course correcting when needed.
Precisely. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of AI, the question of consciousness. If we're talking about AI making moral judgments about understanding human values, does that imply that AI could become conscious?
Whoa, that's a whole other level of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You mean like AI having feelings, experiences a sense of self? Isn't that the stuff of science fiction?
It might seem that way, but Tegmark argues that we need to take this possibility seriously. He talks about the concept of substrate-independent consciousness, the idea that consciousness isn't tied to any specific material like the neurons in our brains, but rather to the information processing itself.
So it's not about what you're made of, but about how you process information, how you experience the world, even if that world is made up of ones and zeros.
Exactly. And this opens up some truly mind-bending possibilities. If consciousness is substrate-independent, then it could theoretically exist in any system, biological or artificial, that achieves the right level of complexity and organization.
Okay, my brain is officially fried. But I have to admit, this is all incredibly fascinating. If we can create AI that's not just intelligent, but also conscious, aware. How does that change our relationship with technology? Do we start talking about AI rights, AI ethics?
Those are exactly the questions we need to be asking, and we'll delve into them more when we come back after the break. We'll explore the implications of AI consciousness, the ethical dilemmas it poses, and what it might mean for the future of humanity and beyond. Stay tuned.
All right, we're back, and my head is still spinning from that last conversation. AI that's not just smart, but actually conscious.
Yeah.
That feels like a whole different ballgame.
It really does. It challenges our assumptions about what it means to be intelligent, to be alive even. And as we were saying, if AI can experience the world, feel emotions, have a sense of self, how do we treat it?
Yeah, it's not like we can just treat a conscious AI like a toaster, right? I mean, if it's if it has hopes and dreams, where do we draw the line?
That's the heart of the ethical dilemma. Tegmark doesn't offer easy answers, but he pushes us to think about it seriously. He lays out this scenario called the Humanitarian Alliance, where a superintelligent AI controlled by a small group takes over not by force, but by doing good.
So it's like they're saying, hey, we can solve all your problems, just let us call the shots. But isn't there a risk in handing over that much power, even to a seemingly benevolent AI? What if their priorities change?
That's the age-old problem with centralized power, whether it's human or AI. Tegmark talks about game theory, how power dynamics play out. Even with good intentions, who watches the watchers?
So it's not enough to just create a good AI. We need to build in safeguards, checks, and balances to make sure it stays aligned with our values, even as it evolves.
Exactly. And it's not just about preventing the AI from turning evil. It's about making sure the system itself is fair, that the benefits of AI are shared widely, not just concentrated in the hands of a few.
This makes me think about all the fears people have about robots taking over. But Tegmark seems to say it's not the robots we should worry about, it's the intelligence itself, regardless of its physical form.
He's spot on. A superintelligent AI doesn't need a metal body to be powerful. It could be purely digital controlling systems manipulating information, shaping events from behind the scenes. That's a lot harder to fight against than some Hollywood Terminator.
It's like in those spy movies, the real threat is the mastermind pulling the strings, not the goons doing the dirty work.
Precisely. So it's crucial that we understand how AI works, how it learns, how it makes decisions. We can't just blindly trust these systems. We need to be able to scrutinize them, hold them accountable.
This all feels pretty overwhelming. Where do we even start? It's like we need a crash course in AI just to understand the dangers, let alone figure out solutions.
That's why conversations like this are so important. We need to demystify AI, make it accessible to everyone, not just tech experts. If we want a say in our future, we need to be informed.
So it's not just about coding and algorithms. It's about having a public conversation, a debate about the values, the ethics we want to build into these systems.
Yeah.
It's almost like AI is forcing us to define what it means to be human.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And that's a conversation that needs to involve everyone, not just governments and corporations. This is about the future of our species, our planet, maybe even our universe.
You know, at the start of this deep dive, I was excited, but also a bit scared of AI's potential. But now I'm feeling more hopeful. Yeah. Knowledge is power, and the more we understand AI, the better equipped we are to shape its development.
That's the spirit. It's not about predicting the future. It's about creating it.
Yeah.
And if you, our listener, want to be part of that creation process, I highly recommend checking out Max Tegmark's Life 3.0. It's a challenging read, but it will definitely get you thinking.
It's been a wild ride exploring the world of AI, from self-driving cars to superintelligence and cosmic consciousness. It's clear that AI is going to be a defining force in the 21st century and beyond. But as we've learned, the future isn't predetermined. It's up to us as individuals and as a society to make choices, to ask tough questions, and to guide the development of AI in a direction that benefits all of humanity.
So keep learning, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going. The future of AI is in our hands.